Welcome everyone to another episode of Tutorial Tuesday. It is week number 13, 2019. I'm glad that you're along with us. This is where I take on your questions relating to photography, self-employment, and doing this for a living. We go through a couple of announcements first, and then we get into your questions. Announcement number 1. If you haven't yet gotten into the March Photography Challenge, you're going to want to swipe over to my blog, read the rules, and send in your pictures. This is all about filling the frame. Announcement number 2, if you haven't yet listened to my wife's podcast on Let Freedom Reign, you want to go ahead and swipe over there, listen to her talk about her childhood, overcoming adversity, and becoming the successful entrepreneur that she is. So go ahead, swipe over there, listen to the podcast. Let's go ahead and get right into your questions. Now hold on a minute. Are you suggesting that brandings are dirty? Okay, yes, they are. Have a good supply of compressed air cans available to you, and then I'm going to link you over to my blog where I wrote about it. So go ahead and swipe. One of the quick tips I have is keep that lens attached to the camera body and then spray it off with the compressed air to minimize the dust that gets into the camera that could potentially get on your sensor. And finally, for me, what I do is send in my camera bodies once a year to Canon Professional Services. And if you have a Nikon, they also have a similar service offering, so take a look at those. I think about this question in a few different ways, and what I mean by that is, in the first way, for those that are just beginning, that haven't studied principles of art and design, things that include leading lines, textures, color, patterns, light, you want to do yourself a favor and you want to go to the library or use the internet and study these things because they're all part of what makes up these images. And once we get to the part where these things are relatively intuitive for us as we go out in the field, that's the second part. The things, that we've studied, that we use to our advantage when we're out in the field should become intuitive for us, just like the camera in our hands. We want it to be just like driving a car. We don't think about all the minute details, but there's always a learning hurdle that we have to go over. And then the third part for me is for those that have studied it, it's shooting from your heart and telling a story. It's shooting what you feel and not what you see. Yeah, this is a great question. It's always on my mind. I certainly want to be around for, a few more years at least, but you have to have a certain amount of situational awareness when you're out there, but you balance that with getting a shot too. I love the business questions. Yes, we do. We use PayPal and we also use Square, which is our primary platform. We've been with Square for a long, long time. I'm going to go ahead and plug them here and you can take a look. Congratulations on shooting your first wedding. I'm sure you might be a little nervous about it. If you're not, perhaps there's something wrong with you. I'm going to address this in a longer message, so watch for that next. So shooting your first wedding, congratulations. I remember shooting my first wedding and it was nerve-wracking. Some of the things that I did to minimize that nerve-wrackingness is I printed out a shot list for myself, things that I wanted to get, like maybe the dad kissing the bride or the getting ready shots, like mom helping her daughter do up the back of the dress, pictures of the bride and her bridal party or the groom and the groom's men. Those are things that I put down on a list, and that kind of gave me a playlist or something to follow, so I didn't feel so chaotic while I was there. Now, some of the other things that I could give you tips on is pay attention to timing. Number 2, pay attention to details. Number 3, if you're not comfortable with focus, get comfortable with focus because you cannot do a do-over with the bride coming down the aisle. So make sure that you have fast lenses that are at least f2.8 or less, like the 85 1.2. If you don't have those, rent them. Go to a rental house online, get a fast lens. It's going to help you in the long run. Number 3, be comfortable with high ISOs. I'm shooting, inside in a church or something like that. I'm shooting anywhere between ISO 1600 and 3200. So Those are my tips for you, and I hope they help. But first and foremost, if it's your first, make yourself a shot list. Yes, I absolutely sell both. I sell digitals and I sell prints. I'm not in the camp of, oh, you never sell digitals. No, I do. I do what it takes to make a living. The short answer to this question is no, I don't have a preference in horse breed. What I prefer is a horse that has a good temperament, and that can come in really any breed, but more specifically, a horse that makes you a better person. Favorite camera? Well, that comes down to whatever's in your hand. I use a 5D Mark IV and a 5D Mark III. Favorite lens, 16 to 35 creatively, 70 to 200 for my workhorse. And Lightroom or Photoshop, I use both. 100% of all of my images go through Lightroom, and of those, perhaps another 30 to 35% go on into Photoshop for something or another. Thank you very much for saying that. I can't believe that I've risen to be somebody's idol, but thank you. I really do appreciate that. What I'm going to do is take a few minutes and I'll tell you about the people that inspire me. Now, I've addressed this before on several of my Tuesday tutorials, but I'll go ahead and throw out some other names that inspire me not only as a photographer, but also as a human being. One of the first photographers that I want to draw your attention to is my friend Matt Cohen. He's a PRCA rodeo photographer. If you haven't seen his images, go ahead and click on his link and get over there. Also, look at his YouTube channel, which I've linked here. The next photographer that I'd like to draw your attention to is Mark Bryant out of Missoula, Montana. His work is top-notch. His light painting is just out of this world, and he's a great human being on top of that. You know, when somebody takes time out of their day to help another creative get back on track, that'll always resonate with me, and that's what Tyler Stableford did for me. A great photographer working with some of the biggest brands. Check him out too. 4 little words resonated with me. Shoot through foreground interest. Those are the words of Bruce Dorn, and they'll always stay with me. He's an incredible photographer, director. Check him out. You'll totally be inspired. The last photographer here that I'd like to draw your attention to is Dan Winters. His originality, his authenticity, and his creativeness that he puts into every one of his portraits is absolutely worth studying, so take a look at him. Jeffrey, thank you for asking this question. It's something that, as a photographer, as an artist, as a creative, we will all be faced with this over time, and it's something that will continually evolve. Our styles will evolve, and they go from different stages along the way where in the beginning, when we're just learning about the technical challenges of our camera, much less color and composition, things like that, we start developing ourselves after we reach or cross these hurdles, like the technical side. And then we get into, oh, what is composition? And we start learning about that. And then you start learning about color. And then you start learning about principles of art and design. And these are things that we take with us out in the field. Now, in my particular style of photography, I can tell you that it's not on the forefront of my mind. The things that are on the forefront of are timelessness, color and composition, lighting, relationships. Those things all drive me when I'm out on location, regardless of the shoot that I'm on. Your style over time will develop. In the first 5 years, I would say that I was thoroughly dedicated to studying this craft. And over the last, I would say 6 years is when I've really started to develop myself. So I hope that helps you, and I hope that you are on the journey to creating your own style.